that you ought to be able to raise a family and earn a good wage, even if you don't go to college. We want to empower people who want to work with their hands to earn a good wage and do a good job. Under this president, my friends, we are building again. We are investing in the United States of America again. We're seeing the fastest private sector wage growth that we have seen in this country in many, many years. And we're doing it by having a president and an administration that believes in you and fights for you. We have trillions of dollars of new investment coming into the United States of America because we finally got a president who says, if you're going to build in America, if you're going to invest in America, we're going to make it easy for you. And that's just the beginning, my friends. That is just the beginning.
That's Vice President J.D. Vance in Pennsylvania yesterday, pushing the president's economic agenda and achievements as the White House gears up for the midterm election season to come. Republicans are facing growing concerns over the economy and the risk of losing control of the Congress next November. A new report reveals Elon Musk is jumping back into the political fray by beginning to fund Republican candidates to keep red seats secure. Joining me now is the former Speaker of the House and Fox News contributor, Newt Gingrich. Speaker, great to see you this morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's good to be with you.
Assess, Newt, for us what the Republicans are doing now going into the midterm elections, trying hard to keep the economic messaging front and center because of all of these polls that show people are still worried about affordability. Your reaction?
Sure. Well, first of all, I thought that Vice President Vance was very effective. As you know, my wife, Callista, is the ambassador to Switzerland. One of her major goals is bringing the Swiss apprenticeship system, which allows people to earn very, very good living. And actually, their apprenticeship system leads people to become CEOs over time. I mean, it's a very different approach. It gets business directly involved in training people. And I think that J.D. Vance's comments about that part of it is very, very important. The Trump administration is committed to every American at every level of education having a good job, having a good income, and having a decent way of life. Now, they still have to finish recovering from the Biden disaster, and that's going to take a while. But I think with the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill on July 4th, with all of the money, the president's gone around the planet and gotten trillions invested in the U.S. He's gotten trillions, frankly, buying U.S. products. The weight of all that, as it comes to bear over the next 6 months, I'm comfortable saying that the campaign by next summer will be between a Trump boom and the Democrats' gloom, and gloom doesn't win very often in American politics. But we're right now in the middle of that. And so people look out the window. It hasn't moved very fast yet. Reagan had exactly the same problem. It took a couple years for the Reagan program to really take effect. But once it did, it was amazing how fast America grew, and he carried 49 states. I think you're going to see President Trump's program works. It's based on sound principles, and it's going to start on January 1st. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, much larger rebates this year.
Yeah.
People are going to be surprised how much they get back. So the whole process will really begin January 1.
Well, I mean, it's unbelievable to me that the Democrats could win the messaging war when we actually see the numbers. I mean, we know that under Joe Biden, inflation was a serious problem. The CPI, Consumer Price Index, surged all the way up to 40-year highs. It was at 9.1% at its worst. And then you look at what happened under President Trump. It comes way down because of his actions, with inflation now at around 3%. But, of course, we're still in it. And this takes time to get a handle on and to rein in. But the president has already reined in many commodities. So why can't they make that case more effectively? Because you're looking at polls where 3/4 of the country say they're worried about the economy. They're worried about the cost of living.
Well, look, you get up every morning and the elite media selects out all the bad news they can find. For example, I think there are at least 6 states now where gasoline is under $2 a gallon.
Yeah.
Now, I once wrote a book called Gasoline $2.50 a Gallon, and Barack Obama attacked it as being a lie because it couldn't happen. But here you have gasoline now dramatically coming down everywhere except California, where the gas tax is so high and the rules are so ridiculous that they artificially pay more than anywhere else in America. So at some point, this will all start to sink in. The other big problem, though, you had earlier in the show, and I cannot overstate this. You talk affordability, it's not bacon, it's not cheese, it's not even gasoline. It is ultimately health insurance.
Right.
The average family of 4 is paying $23,000 a year for health insurance. That's the equivalent of buying a small car every year. And Congress has to take steps, the most important of which I think is transparency, so you know what something costs, you know what its quality is. I think you'll see the minute we get true transparency, you'll see health prices start down. And when prices start down, insurance costs will start down.
Yeah, and that's why the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is bringing the GOP-led health care bill to the floor for a vote today, although they're not allowing an amendment vote to extend the expiring Obamacare subsidies. Johnson says the party is unified on the bill, and the White House is weighing its options in the anticipated health care fight, with Democrats who want subsidy extensions for 3 more years. Newt, is there any realm that you would expect any of these Obamacare subsidies to be extended, and what would be the best plan for the White House to come up with to offset the Democrats' high-priced health care?
Well, look, I mean, part of it is, as Congressman Huizenga pointed out, you have the insurance companies with this COVID increase. And it was a COVID increase, temporary, according to Chuck Schumer, when they passed it. Half the people never knew they had health insurance. The money went straight to the insurance companies. They were thrilled. It made their profit margin much bigger. But literally half the people didn't know they had coverage because they were young, they were healthy, and they didn't use it. So why should the taxpayers pay the insurance companies? This isn't about a subsidy for a 23-year-old worker. This is about the insurance companies. Second, why should anybody who refuses to work get paid by the taxpayers?
Yeah.
Third, why should a crook? You see this billion-dollar theft in one city,
right.
in Minnesota. One city, $1 billion. Well, why should the taxpayers sustain that kind of a program that's that incompetent? So I think you could have a trimmed-down, dramatically reformed passage only to affect honest people who really need the help, save literally trillions of dollars, and the Democrats would have a hard time explaining why that's a bad idea.
Yeah. Let's stick to the law, right? Follow the law. Meanwhile, the White House is blocking former President Joe Biden's executive privilege request to not release his autopen presidency files. White House counsel David Warrington wrote to the National Archives and Records Administration saying, as President Trump has stated, the abuse of the autopen that took place during the Biden presidency and the extraordinary efforts to shield President Biden's diminished faculties from the public must be subject to a full accounting to ensure nothing similar ever happens again. Newt, your reaction? I mean, President Trump has responded to Biden's request here.
Look, whether it's the Epstein papers or it's Joe Biden's autopen, I'm for transparency. The American people deserve to know what goes on in their government. Remember, in the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln went up to the Congress to explain his wife's spending pattern for furniture for the White House, because he understood that transparency for the American people is at the heart of believing in your government. So I am for transparency over and over. And unless it's a genuinely serious secret, I don't think the American people should be blocked from knowing.
That's right. And this was this very, very big secret and a significant secret that impacted policy. Who was making all these policy plans if Joe Biden wasn't up to the job? Newt, real quick, do you believe that the Republicans will lose the House or Senate in 2026?
No, because I think the economy is going to recover, come roaring back, and I think the Democrats keep getting nuttier and nuttier. And the choice between a really weird Democratic Party and Republican prosperity, I think by September of next year will be decisive. All
right, we will leave it there. Newt, great to see you this morning. I wish you and the ambassador a very Merry Christmas. Good to see you, Newt Gingrich.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, sir. We'll be right back.